This is a video about utopias, by request. Basically, I think utopias are impossible for the most part. The biggest problem with utopias is the way they are supposed to be perfect. Perfection is logically impossible, so we can drop that idea right away and move on to a more virtual utopia. There are different kinds of utopias, but I just want to focus on what people think of when they think utopia. Usually they think of a society where it is nearly perfect in every major category, like the political system, government, economics, the justice system, and of course the social aspect. So I want to focus on that without digging into whether it's brought about by technology or some drastic change in people's behavior or whatever. Usually a utopia is thought of as a society where there is no longer any sort of scarcity and there are robots that do most of the menial work. So people are free to do what they want and pursue interests that benefit society. For example, I do things like admin a diet and fitness forum, make videos here, and volunteer to help people I know with their computer-related problems. So I would be doing just that in such a society and not working my usual job. Of course, I would still do some of my usual job duties, which is to work on Unix and Linux-based servers. I wouldn't get paid, but the things I need would be given freely. People in such a society are always very nice to each other, like a family would be, for example. Usually this is said to be achieved by eliminating scarcity and being able to cure any sort of mental illness, as well as prevent any a posteriori alterations to our instinctual social behaviors. So, in such a society, the justice system would only be to help resolve disagreements fairly, and there would be no need for conventional law. Such a society is usually going to be an anarchy, as well as some sort of collective. So, that is the sort of society I'm talking about when I say utopia, and that is what most people usually think of. There is no way to know what may or may not be possible with technology in the distant future, so I won't even comment on that because there simply is no way to speak on that without pulling the whole thing out of your ass. So I just want to talk about now and the near future. A utopia is idealism. It is an idealized society. I do think that we definitely need to strive for idealism, but it's quite foolish to think we are going to get it. The reason why you strive for it, even though you know it isn't possible, is because that is how you make things the best they can be. To be realistic, you must be pragmatic. You still choose what is closest to your ideal, even though the limitations of feasibility may make your best option a far cry from what you want. One problem preventing utopias from existing is that it would require people abandoning all unfounded belief systems and embracing rationality. People are unlikely to do this on their own, and forcing it would be self-defeating. Another problem is that we must be able to fix any mental problems, from those completely out of touch with reality to those people that are maybe just a little lazy because they're a bit depressed. That is something we are so far away from achieving that there is no point in even speculating about it. Some people think that societal problems are addressed by an objective morality that they believe in, so they think getting people to embrace their absolute concept of good while abandoning evil is how a utopia is achieved. So they may reject my objections about mental illness and a posteriori conditioning on the grounds that it is irrelevant due to morality. However, objective morality does not exist. I have a video about that, but basically morals are feelings and not the logic you apply to the feelings. Feelings, of course, are subjective by definition. Then our shared moral feelings can be explained by evidence from evolutionary biology, in particular the evolution of different social species and their behaviors. So that's why the moral argument for utopia doesn't hold water. Scarcity might not be insurmountable if it wasn't for overpopulation. However, with our current population, we don't have enough resources for everyone. Life isn't fair either. People are born with different advantages and disadvantages, abilities and disabilities. We can make things more equitable than they are, but it's never going to be even close to fair. There also has to be some advantage to producing things beneficial to society. The advantage doesn't need to be anywhere near what it is in the US right now, but there has to be enough to motivate people. We need to find a way to make sure everyone has the basics of food, shelter, and medical care, but if you want something more, you have to work for it. Not everyone has that ability, so even if they are warm and fed, it's never going to be even close to fair. That's why I'm just very liberal rather than socialist. There is going to have to be some rule of law and some way to protect society from dangerous individuals. The lack of ability to control the things that cause such behavior that I mentioned earlier is why this is true. We can focus solely on protecting the public, rehabilitation, and even restitution when possible, rather than our current, more punitive system. Our current system focuses heavily on vengeance and punishing the wicked, which are silly ideas I addressed earlier. While there is scarcity, there will always be greed, so regulations are required to address that as well. There have to be just enough laws to protect the public, but no more. So while anarchy wouldn't work, we should be very libertarian. That's libertarian with a small l, being just the antonym of totalitarian, not to be confused with capital L, the Libertarian Party, which is the far-right version of libertarianism. The left-wing version of that makes more sense. You can be somewhat egalitarian without futile attempts at total fairness. There also must be restrictions on the economic side to prevent the oligarchies that result from the power vacuum created by the far-right version. That is really about the best we can do. This falls way short of people's idea of utopia. We should still strive to make it as close to that as possible, even though this best that we work towards still leaves a lot to be desired. Idealism is, of course, an ideal and should be thought of that way. We must accept reality, even if it isn't what we want. You have to accept what is, rather than believe what you want to be true. That is what rationality is all about. So as you can see, utopias are impossible.